Clark rule is in full effect. These players negotiated a rule purely on Caitlin Clark impact. Now, there's new information coming out to prove it. And I'm telling you right now, this is a massive, massive rule for transformational, generational players, bro. If Caitlin Clark never enters the WNBA, they never get this money, bro.
$500,000. That's what the #1 pick in the 2026 WNBA draft will make in their first season. Compare that to what Caitlin Clark made in 2024, $76,000. This isn't just a raise. This is a complete restructuring of how the WNBA values its most transformational players. And the evidence is mounting that this rule exists because of exactly one person.
He put breaking. For those interested in understanding just how bad the salary cap situation for the Indiana Fever is going to get in a few years, in 2028, Caitlin Clark and Aliyah Boston both are projected to have supermax contracts. Now, that is something that it's finna be bad, man. Finna be bad for Kelsey Mitchell. We're going to talk about that shortly, but we have to talk about this massive rule change.
Mike on Twitter broke down the numbers, and they're staggering. The 2026 #1 pick gets a 4-year contract worth over $2 million. Year 1, $500,000. Year 2, $520,000. Year 3, $572,000. Year 4, $646,000. Within 2 years of entering the league, these rookies will be millionaires. Caitlin Clark played an entire season for what the next generation will make in 6 weeks. But here's what makes this the Caitlin Clark rule, and not just a standard salary increase. The timing tells the whole story.
And I can honestly say, they making more than me, bro. They finally did it. They getting a bag. They will be millionaires within, 2 years, bro, of them playing in the WNBA. This was a monumental feat for rookies coming straight out of college with NIL money already. This is awesome, man. I love this for young players. If it's one thing about me, man, you guys been following me for the last 4 years. I care deeply about college players, man. They are the future. All kids are the future, but these college players are definitely the future of all sports.
Paige Buchers is projected to be the 2025 #1 pick. Under the previous CBA, she would have made $80,000 in year 2. Under this new deal, she'll make $499,000. That's a 4% reduction from what the 2026 pick will make, but it's still over 6 times what she would have earned under the old system. The union negotiated this, knowing exactly who was coming into the league and what kind of revenue they would generate. National media couldn't ignore the disparity. Stephen A. Smith talked about it on ESPN. The conversation wasn't just happening in WNBA circles anymore. It became a mainstream story that a player bringing in millions of viewers was making less than some assistant coaches.
Contract. Angel Reese, $349, $395, Supermax. Aliyah Boston, max contract, Supermax. Guys, Kelsey Mitchell future. Kelsey Mitchell is in a world of trouble in Indiana because just like I've been telling y'all, man, I just do not believe Kelsey Mitchell is going to be paid like a super max player from the Indiana Fever.
Now look at what this means for the Indiana Fever's salary cap situation. In 2028, Caitlin Clark is projected to have a supermax contract. Aliyah Boston is projected to have a supermax contract. That's 2 of the highest possible salaries on one roster. The Fever will have arguably the best big 3 in the WNBA, but they can't pay all 3 of them like max players. Kelsey Mitchell is the odd one out, not because of her talent, but because of timing and market value. The math doesn't work for Indiana to give her a supermax deal when they're already committed to Clark and Boston.
Mitchell, let's just hear Kelsey speak about it, because this ain't finna be her team after this season.
The biggest part that I respected about Caitlin is that she never was bigger than a program.
Yeah, the time I've spent with Caitlin, like, she definitely has, like, oh, you're like my little sister.
Yes.
Because she likes to, like, you know, talk about basketball and kind of troll a little bit. Yeah,
goodness.
Exactly.
You talk about a kid in the candy store, that's Caitlin.
Yeah. When you think about, like, your team in the last couple years, right? We'll say the obvious. Caitlin joins the team, a lot more eyeballs, a lot more scrutiny, a lot of conversation about like what it's like for you guys in your locker room. So what do you think, or do you feel like people sometimes just like overlook your leadership specifically and your impact on the team from like a chemistry standpoint? Because there's just so many.
Listen to how Kelsey talks about Caitlin's impact on the team. She's emphasizing leadership, chemistry, adjustment periods, but notice what she's not talking about: her own future with the organization. She says there were a lot of moving parts, a lot of role-playing that had to be situated. That's diplomatic language for my role changed dramatically when she arrived. Kelsey mentions that it was an adjustment for everyone, including the Pacers organization and Indiana entertainment people. She's describing a complete organizational shift, and in that shift, the financial reality became clear. The franchise is building around Clark and Boston, not around the veteran who's been there since 2017.
Narratives. So like, do you think people are overlooking that?
I think that in a short, yeah. I think naturally, yes, because of the society, the social media, and how bad, people take to social media and abuse it for in the wrong realm of light. And so I think that's one part of it. But I also think that it was an adjustment period. And I talked to, the FIBA organization about this. It's like, I think it was an adjustment period that, we all should have adjusted to throughout the course of the organization. I think that, that was big for everybody. Pacers Entertainment, FIBA organization. I felt like at that time, there was a lot of, role playing that had to be, situated. I feel like, that when something that big or someone that big who has that much impact comes into something.
But here's what Kelsey respects. Caitlin never tried to be bigger than the program. She says it multiple times in different ways. Caitlin knows who she is globally, but within the locker room, she wasn't trying to take over. She was fitting into a team structure, making sure the chemistry worked. That's the part that makes this situation complicated. This isn't about Caitlin pushing anyone out. This is about the business reality that her presence created. The new CBA, the Supermax contracts, the salary cap implications, all of it flows from the revenue she generates. And that revenue means some players will get paid and others won't.
Just like I said in the beginning part of this video, had Caitlin Clark not went to the WNBA, they wouldn't have this rule. I don't think Paige impact, even though she got the blue blood UConn with her, I don't think Paige impact would have caused this big of a catastrophic change. It was so unfair that national media was talking about it. Even Stephen A. I remember him talking about Caitlin Clark being so great and only making $76,000 a year. Was crazy. They had to fix this. But I think the holdup still was the revenue sharing. I think no matter what, they was going to fix this. I just think that what took them so long was the revenue sharing part.
The salary cap breakdown shows exactly how tight this gets. Mike's breakdown on Twitter illustrated that Indiana is going to have a serious problem in a few years. You can't have two Supermax players and a third max-level player without completely gutting your bench. The WNBA salary cap doesn't have the flexibility that the NBA does. Role players matter, and you need money to sign them. Stephanie White is doing ESPN work while coaching a team with arguably the best young core in the league. That's a choice that makes sense financially for her, but it also signals something about where the organization is focusing its resources. They're not overpaying for coaching when they need every dollar for player salaries. This is the Caitlin Clark effect in action. Not just the rule change, but the complete restructuring of how franchises allocate money.
There are a lot of adjustments that people have to make on the floor, off the floor, in the locker room, in the training room. Just a lot of stuff, is a lot of moving parts. And I think the biggest part that I respected about Caitlin is that she never was bigger than the program. I don't know if that makes sense, but like, it wasn't like she wasn't trying to take over. It wasn't, I don't know how to explain that. You know what I'm trying to say though?
Yeah, no, I know what you're trying to say. It's like she knows who she is. She comes in. She's going to obviously do her part because that's what being a professional athlete is. But with the understanding of fitting into a team, making sure we fit, making sure we have chemistry. So it's never bigger than like the group
it's like
itself.
She wasn't trying to be bigger than everybody. Like within our locker room.
She didn't have to be bigger because she was bigger. nationally, worldwidely, globally, it don't matter. She was bigger, and she's the plenty reason why you ain't finna be on this team no more. Get down in the comment section. Let me know y'all thoughts.
Watch Kelsey's face when she talks about Caitlyn not needing to be bigger in the locker room because she already was bigger nationally, worldwide, globally. There's admiration there, but there's also recognition. Kelsey knows what this means for the business side. She's a veteran who's seen how the league works. She understands that impact translates to dollars, and dollars determine who stays and who goes. The interviewer asks if people overlook Kelsey's leadership and impact on team chemistry. Kelsey's answer is telling. I think naturally yes. She blames social media, but she also mentions an adjustment period that the organization should have handled better. That's not just about on-court roles. That's about managing expectations when a generational talent arrives and changes everything. Here's what makes the Caitlin Clark rule so significant beyond just the money. It's a recognition that transformational players deserve transformational compensation from day one. The old system was built on the assumption that rookies should pay their dues, prove themselves, earn their way up. But when a player enters the league with a massive existing fan base, proven revenue generation, and national media attention, that assumption breaks down. Caitlin Clark brought 3.2 million viewers to WNBA games in 2024. She sold out arenas on the road. She made the league relevant in markets that had never cared about women's basketball. And she did all of that while making $76,000, which is less than what some college players were making in NIL deals. The optics were terrible, and the union knew it. The CBA negotiations included revenue sharing, which was always going to be the sticking point. The players wanted a bigger piece of the pie, and the league wanted proof that the pie was actually growing. Caitlin Clark provided that proof. Her rookie season demonstrated that the WNBA could generate significantly higher revenue with the right star power. That gave the union leverage they didn't have before. Now look at what happens with the 2026 draft. Whoever goes number one is getting a $500,000 salary before they play a single professional game. That's a statement. The league is saying we value elite talent, we're willing to pay for it up front, and we're not going to underpay the next generation of stars. This is a massive shift in philosophy. But it also creates new problems. The salary cap hasn't increased proportionally to these new rookie contracts. That means teams are going to have to make harder choices about veteran players. Kelsey Mitchell is the first major example of this, but she won't be the last. When rookies are making $500,000 and veterans are competing for max slots, somebody's getting squeezed out. Indiana's situation is particularly brutal because they have two young stars who are both max contract players. Clark and Boston aren't going anywhere. They're the foundation of the franchise for the next decade. That means everyone else is expendable, including players who were there before the transformation happened. Kelsey helped build the culture that made Indiana an attractive destination for rookies. Now that same culture is pricing her out. The other element here is the comparison to Paige Buchers. Some people online are calling this the Paige rule, because she's the next big college star entering the league, but that ignores the timeline. The negotiations happened during Caitlyn's rookie season, when the disparity between her impact and her salary was the national story. Paige benefits from the rule, but she didn't create the conditions that made it necessary. This is about leverage and timing. The union needed proof that star power translates to revenue. Caitlyn provided that proof in real time during the CBA negotiations. The league couldn't argue that the old salary structure was fair when their biggest draw was making less than mid-level NBA G League players. The embarrassment factor alone forced change. And here's the thing about generational players. They're rare. The WNBA has existed for 27 years. How many players have entered the league with Caitlin Clark's level of name recognition and proven ability to move ratings? You can count them on one hand. The rule is designed for outliers, for the once-in-a-decade talents who change the trajectory of the league. That's why it's the Caitlin Clark rule. She's the template. Looking forward, this changes the calculus for college players considering staying in school versus going pro. Before, you could argue that staying for your senior year and maximizing NIL deals made financial sense because the rookie salary was so low. Now, if you're projected as the #1 pick, you're walking into $500,000 immediately. That's life-changing money for most families. The incentive structure has completely flipped. It also changes how teams approach the draft. When the #1 pick costs $76,000, you can take a chance on potential. When it costs $500,000, you need to be more certain about immediate impact. The financial stakes are higher, which means the evaluation process has to be more rigorous. Teams can't afford to miss on a pick that's eating up that much cap space. For Kelsey Mitchell specifically, the next few months are critical. She's going to have to decide whether she wants to take less money to stay in Indiana and compete for championships, or whether she wants to go somewhere else and get paid what she's worth. That's not an easy choice. She's been with the Fever since 2017. She's seen the organization at its worst and helped build it into a contender. But business is business, and the Fever have made their priorities clear. The broader question is whether this rule actually solves the problem it's designed to address. Yes, top rookies will make significantly more money, but if the salary cap doesn't expand enough to accommodate these contracts, you're just redistributing the same limited pool of money. Veterans lose, rookies win, and the overall player compensation doesn't increase that much. The real test is whether the league can grow revenue enough to make everyone better off. That's where Caitlin Clark's impact extends beyond just her own contract. If she continues to drive ratings, sell tickets, and attract sponsors, the entire salary cap grows. That benefits everyone, including veterans like Kelsey, who are competing for max slots. But if the rating spike was a one-year phenomenon tied specifically to her rookie season, then the cap stays flat, and the competition for dollars gets even more intense. So here's the ultimate question. Was this rule change necessary, or was it just the union capitalizing on a unique moment in WNBA history? Because if you're being honest, Caitlin Clark would have been fine financially regardless. She's got endorsement deals worth millions. She doesn't need the WNBA salary to be wealthy. But the next player like her, whoever that is, will benefit enormously from this precedent. And that's probably the point. The union saw an opportunity to reset the market for elite talent, and they took it. Whether you call it the Caitlin Clark rule or just smart negotiating, the impact is undeniable. Rookie contracts just went from poverty wages to legitimate professional salaries. The gap between college NIL money and WNBA rookie pay has closed significantly, and teams now have to make real financial decisions about how they build their rosters. This is what progress looks like in professional sports. It's messy, it's complicated, and somebody always gets left behind. In this case, that somebody might be Kelsey Mitchell, but the next generation of stars will walk into the league as millionaires, and that's a win for the future of women's basketball. So what do you think? Is this the Caitlin Clark rule, or would this have happened eventually regardless of who came into the league? And more importantly, should veteran players like Kelsey Mitchell be frustrated that rookies are now making more than they did for most of their careers? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and let's keep this conversation going, because this is just the beginning of how the WNBA's financial landscape is about to change.